I didn't walk into that party expecting to question my entire marriage. Honestly, it started out like any other Saturday night. Lawn chairs scattered across a trimmed backyard, soft music playing from a Bluetooth speaker, couples holding drinks and fake smiling through work gossip. These were Laura's people, her colleagues, the ones she spent 40, sometimes 50 hours a week with. And I was the husband tagging along, just happy to be invited into a world that never really felt like mine. I remember I brought a six-pack of craft beer that no one touched. Laura said white wine was safer for these types of gatherings. I should have known from that alone. The house belonged to her manager, I think. Some mid-level guy whose name I immediately forgot, but who greeted me like we were old fraternity brothers. I made the usual rounds, met a few people, laughed at a couple of dry accounting jokes I didn't understand, and nodded through half a dozen introductions that all blurred together. I was doing what I always did at these things. Blending into the background, smiling just enough, trying not to come off as bored or suspicious. Then I saw her, Laura. She was standing near the grill, laughing, drink in hand, with a guy I hadn't met yet. Chris, as I'd find out. Tall, clean-cut, the kind of guy who probably ran track in college and now played casual tennis with just enough flair to make people believe he was humble about it. He was animated, telling some story that had her doubled over in laughter. That wasn't what got me. It was the way she touched him. Not a quick pat or a casual brush of fingers, the kind of gestures you excuse in a crowded room. No, this was different. She laid her hand on his chest as she laughed, like she'd done it 1,000 times before, like it belonged there, and it stayed. It didn't flinch. It didn't retreat. It rested, just lingered. To everyone else, it might have looked harmless, playful even, but to me, it was a signal, a quiet one, tucked beneath the noise and laughter, but loud enough for me to hear it clear as day. I kept watching, waiting for her to pull away, for Chris to take a polite step back, for something that would tell me I was imagining it. But nothing came. If anything, the moment seemed to stretch, like time paused for just those few seconds to make sure I noticed. And I did. Eventually, she stepped back, brushing her hair behind her ear, still smiling. She didn't look around to see if I'd been watching. She didn't need to. I wanted to say something right then, but I didn't. Instead, I stood next to a half-finished cornhole game, pretending to listen to a guy talk about refinancing his mortgage, and let the tension build in my chest like a balloon I couldn't pop. When she came back over to me later, she was glowing. Not drunk, not even tipsy, just riding the high of socializing, of being the center of attention. That had always been Laura's thing. She loved being adored, admired. It used to be endearing. Now it felt like a threat. "Having fun?" she asked, looping her arm through mine. "Sure," I said. "Met some interesting people." She grinned, oblivious or maybe pretending to be. "I told you they're good folks." "Chris seems friendly," I said, not hiding the edge in my voice. Her smile faltered for just a second, then returned, tighter this time. "He's harmless. Don't start." "I didn't start anything," I replied. "I'm just saying." "James," she cut in, and there was that tone. The one she used when I was veering into off-limits territory. "We're at a work party. Can you not make this weird?" I bit my tongue. I didn't want to make a scene. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just being jealous. But the way she dismissed me, it didn't sit right. On the drive home, I brought it up again. "So, you and Chris," I started carefully. "How long have you two worked together?" She was scrolling through her phone when I asked. She didn't even look up. "Couple years." "Why?" "Just curious," I said. "You seem close." Now she looked up, eyes narrowing slightly. "Close? Are you serious?" "I'm asking," I said, keeping my tone level. "I'm not accusing. Just, there was a moment at the party." She scoffed. "You mean when I touched someone during a conversation? God forbid I make physical contact with another human being." I stared at the road. It wasn't just contact. It was the way you laughed, the way your hand, never mind. "No," she snapped, shifting in her seat. "Go on. Let's hear it." Let's unpack whatever twisted little narrative your head's been spinning. I didn't respond. She shook her head, muttering something under her breath. Jesus, you always do this. One harmless thing and suddenly I'm sleeping with half my office. I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. She *T back. There it was. The deflection. The we *P*nized outrage. Instead of addressing the discomfort, she flipped it around, made me feel like I was the one with the problem. It wasn't just gaslighting, it was practiced, polished. The rest of the drive was silent. Except for the soft hum of the radio she turned up to avoid more conversation. That night, she went straight to bed without another word. I stayed up in the living room, staring at the muted television, thinking about how fast a simple moment could crack open 1,000 questions. I replayed it in my head. The laugh, the hand, the way she smiled at him like he was more familiar than I'd ever realized. Was I being paranoid? Possessive? Maybe. But deep down, I knew what I saw. And more than that, I knew what I felt. It wasn't just about Chris. It was about her. About the way she had changed lately. About the parts of her life that seemed to happen in shadows. This wasn't just a moment. It was a message. A warning. Maybe I wasn't supposed to see it. Maybe I wasn't even supposed to understand it. But I did. And once you see something like that, once the doubt creeps in, it doesn't go away. It burrows Indiana. It multiplies. You start noticing things you wouldn't have paid attention to before. And worse, you stop believing the version of reality you're being given. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing. She was asleep, and I was awake, wide awake, with a question I didn't yet have the courage to answer. Who was my wife when I wasn't looking? After that night, something in me shifted. I didn't say anything more about Chris, and Laura didn't bring it up either. But from that point forward, everything she did felt under a microscope. Not because I wanted to be the suspicious husband, but because I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. I couldn't unfeel the chill that crept into my bones whenever I thought about that look in her eyes, or the way she touched him like it wasn't the first time. The next week was filled with what I now recognize as red flags, though at the time, I tried to convince myself they were nothing. First, it was the late nights at work. "I've got a deadline," she said on Monday, tossing her bag over her shoulder. "We're rolling out this new platform, and everything's behind." I nodded. "Need me to pick up dinner?" "No, I'll grab something with the team. Don't wait up." She kissed me, barely. A quick press of lips that felt more like habit than affection. Then she was gone. She came home around 10:45 that night, hair a little tousled, makeup slightly faded, but still in the same pencil skirt and blouse she wore that morning. I was on the couch, half watching a documentary I wasn't following. "Long day?" I asked. She exhaled dramatically, dropping her heels at the door. "You have no idea." That became the pattern. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all late, all the same explanation. "Work's insane right now." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But Laura had always been efficient. The type to finish her workload early. The type who hated staying late unless it was absolutely necessary. Now she was logging 12-hour days like it was normal, and something about that didn't add up. The next red flag was her phone. She used to leave it on the counter, charging at night, completely unconcerned. But now, she kept it with her at all times. Bathroom, laundry room, even out back when she watered the plants. And the passwords had changed. I noticed that on Wednesday, I'd gone to check the weather on her phone. My own was upstairs, and it asked for a passcode. That was new. "Hey," I said, holding up her phone. "Did you change your lock code?" She looked over her shoulder, visibly startled. "Yeah, IT told us to. Security protocol." "Huh," I said, trying to sound casual. "What is it?" She blinked. "What do you need my password for?" "I don't. Just asking." She hesitated. "It's just work stuff, James. They're cracking down on data leaks." Right. It wasn't just the lock screen. She started texting more too. Quick bursts of typing with this half-smile on her lips that she tried to hide. If I walked into the room mid-conversation, She'd hit the side button fast, screen going dark, and she never left it face up anymore. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. I mean, couples deserve privacy, right? Boundaries. Maybe I was just spiraling because of that party, because of how weird things had felt ever since. But then there were the clothes. New clothes, specifically. Laura had always been stylish, but lately she was coming home with shopping bags I didn't recognize, filled with items she never mentioned buying. A new red blouse with a neckline lower than she usually wore. Heels that looked more like something you'd wear to a lounge than an office. "I thought you hated stilettos," I said, holding up one of the new pairs. She shrugged, not even looking up from her phone. "They were on sale." "For what, though?" I pressed. "You wear flats to work. You complain every time we go out and you have to dress up." "I can like nice things, can't I?" she snapped. I held up my hands. "Didn't say you couldn't. Just asking." She rolled her eyes and walked away. The final straw that week was the perfume. Laura had always worn something light, something floral. I can't remember the brand, but it was subtle, familiar. That changed suddenly. One evening, she walked through the door and the scent hit me like a truck. Bold, heavy, musky, almost seductive. Like something you'd wear to a dark cocktail bar, not to a spreadsheet meeting. "New perfume?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Yeah, sample from work." I sniffed again. "It's strong. You don't like it?" "It's just different." She shrugged. I felt like switching it up. That was the thing about Laura. She was always just out of reach. Just evasive enough to keep me doubting myself. Just charming enough to defuse confrontation before it started. I told myself I'd let it go, that I wouldn't become that guy, the one who snoops or demands answers. But I couldn't help noticing the patterns piling up. New clothes, locked phone, long hours, sudden changes in taste. And of course, Chris. Always Chris. His name popped up in just enough casual sentences to make me sick. One night, I got bold. We were lying in bed, the blue glow of her phone lighting up her face. "Hey," I said. "What's Chris's deal, anyway?" She didn't look away from the screen. "What do you mean?" "Just, you talk about him a lot." She blinked, finally setting the phone down. "Do I?" "Yeah, you do." She sighed. "He's on my team. We're working on the same campaign. Of course I mention him. Right? Just seems like you two are pretty close." Her eyes narrowed. "Are we really doing this again?" "I'm just saying." "No, you're implying," she said, voice suddenly sharp. "You're doing that thing where you act like you're not accusing me of something. But you are." I hesitated. "I'm trying to talk." "No, James," she said, sitting up in bed. "You're trying to corner me. Again. And I'm sick of it." "I'm not. I bust my ass all week, and I come home to this? You interrogating me over a guy I work with?" I sat up too. "You've changed, Laura. You're distant. You're hiding things. Don't act like I'm crazy for noticing." She stared at me, her jaw clenched. "You're not crazy. You're insecure. There's a difference." The silence that followed was louder than anything we'd said. She rolled over and turned off the light. I lay awake, eyes open in the dark, wondering when she'd become someone I had to defend myself from. The thing is, I didn't have proof. I didn't have messages or photos or a confession, but I had a growing list of small inconsistencies. And those are the worst kind. The kind that eat away at you one quiet night at a time. And maybe that's what she was counting on, that I'd doubt myself just enough to stay quiet. But I wasn't quiet anymore. I was watching, waiting, and I knew this wasn't over. The night it became real wasn't special. No dramatic thunderstorm, no ominous music swelling in the background. Just an ordinary Thursday. The kind of night where most people were probably curled up on their couches, half watching TV, thinking about the weekend. But for me, it was the night everything changed. Laura had texted earlier that day. "Running late. Don't wait up." Simple, normal, unassuming. I responded with, "Okay. Be safe." She didn't reply. By 10:30, I was pacing. I wasn't even trying to pretend I wasn't suspicious anymore. The quiet of the house felt like a trap. Our bedroom, once a place of comfort, now felt like a shell, decorated with traces of a life I wasn't sure was mine anymore. Her clothes hung neatly in the closet. Her jewelry sat untouched in the dish by the sink, and her laughter, God, her laughter, used to fill the space like sunlight. Now there was only silence. At 11:17, headlights swept across the living room window. I moved to the side, staying just out of view. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Instead, it was a silver BMW I didn't recognize. Sleek, tinted windows, pulled to a slow, casual stop like it had done this before. I peered through the blinds and saw them. Laura in the passenger seat, Chris behind the wheel. Even from that distance, I could see the ease between them. Her body angled toward him, her hand resting on his arm as she said something that made him smile. They stayed parked for almost 2 minutes, talking, laughing, comfortable. Too comfortable. Then it happened. He leaned in. She didn't recoil. She didn't freeze. She didn't even look around to see if anyone was watching. She smiled and leaned in too. They kissed. It wasn't quick. It wasn't guilty. It was slow, deliberate, like they didn't care who saw. I stepped back from the window, heart racing, stomach turning. I wanted to throw something, scream, punch the wall. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen in the quiet horror of confirmation. She finally came in 5 minutes later. Calm, casual, keys jingling as she unlocked the door. "Hey!" she said like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just shattered the last piece of my trust out in that driveway. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was brutal." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. My mouth felt dry, my chest hollow. She hung her coat up, walked past me with a kiss on the cheek like always, and headed straight upstairs. I followed in silence. She showered. I listened from the bedroom as the water ran. It sounded normal, mundane. But in my head, the sound was warped, tainted, like she was washing away what she'd just done, rinsing off the part of herself she never intended me to see. She climbed into bed, scrolling through her phone, humming softly to herself like she was actually relaxed, happy. I sat in the corner chair, pretending to read, my mind spinning. Then I heard it. Her phone buzzed. I glanced up. She didn't react, just tapped the screen and continued scrolling. Another buzz, then another. When she finally got up to use the bathroom, she left her phone on the bed. A tiny window of time. I know I shouldn't have. I hate that I did. But I picked it up. The screen was still unlocked. It was like the universe was done playing games. I didn't have to dig far. The most recent message preview was from a contact labeled "Just See," and I knew immediately who that was. God, I can still taste you. My stomach flipped. I tapped into the thread, heart pounding, hands shaking. There they were, texts from Chris. Dozens of them. Some flirty, some deeply int asterisk mate. Some so casually cruel in their honesty that I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "Last night was incredible. I couldn't stop thinking about your hands today. I love the way you laugh when you're tipsy. Makes me want to keep you drunk and in my bed forever. I hate when we have to pretend like we're not together." And then one from Laura. "I'm sorry I had to rush out. He was waiting up. I'll find an excuse for next time." Me. I read every word, every emoji, every heart and smiley face like it was etched in fire. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a mistake. It was a full-blown affair. Emotional, physical, ongoing, and completely intentional. And she had lied so easily. She came out of the bathroom moments later, wrapped in her robe, towel in her hair. When she saw me holding her phone, her expression changed. Just for a second. Just long enough to show me the truth. Panic. She tried to play it off. "James," she said slowly. "What are you doing?" I looked up at her, phone still in hand. "I think you know." There was a beat of silence, then too. She didn't deny it. Didn't reach for the phone. She just stood there, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, like the weight of it all had finally landed on her chest. "You went through my phone?" she asked finally. I laughed, sharp, bitter. "That's what you're going with? That's your concern?" She said nothing. I stood up, phone still glowing in my hand. You lied to me. For how long? How many nights did you sit next to me, kiss me, laugh with me, while planning your next night with him? Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. Not this time. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You could start with the truth, I said, my voice low. Unless that's still too much for you. Her lip trembled. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I shook my head. You mean I wasn't supposed to find out? She sat down on the edge of the bed, burying her face in her hands. I didn't mean to hurt you, James. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Every part of me felt broken. She sobbed softly, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt absolutely nothing. No sympathy. No urge to comfort her. Just an overwhelming, suffocating emptiness. I slept in the guest room that night. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee. She left her phone on the counter like usual. She hummed along to the radio while packing her lunch, like she hadn't detonated a bomb in the middle of our life. But I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't doubting myself anymore. The truth was out, and now I couldn't ignore it. I didn't confront her again. I didn't rage or demand more answers. The proof was already in my hands. Everything else was noise. Instead, I started making plans. The strangest part wasn't the lies, or even the betrayal. It was the performance that followed. The calm after the storm. The eerie, chilling way Laura acted like nothing had happened. The morning after I found the messages. Those messages, the ones that made everything undeniable. I expected her to be shaken, to cry, to beg, to at least acknowledge the bomb she'd dropped on our marriage. But instead, she moved through the kitchen like a woman untouched by consequence. Want eggs? She asked, as if the words "I can still taste you" weren't burned into my skull. No, I said flatly. She cracked two into a pan for herself and hummed along to a song playing softly on her phone. Her hair was still wet from the shower, towel around her shoulders. She looked fresh, radiant even, like the woman I married, but not. She moved differently now, more deliberate, every gesture rehearsed, every smile placed with surgical precision. She slid her plate onto the table, poured her coffee, and sat down across from me like it was just another Thursday, like she wasn't lying to my face with every blink. How'd you sleep? She asked, taking a bite. I stared at her. Not well. She nodded, as if that was a completely normal answer. Me neither. I waited for a follow-up, an apology, an ounce of truth. But she just kept eating, eyes glued to her phone, thumb lazily scrolling, probably reading his texts. And that's how it started. The charade. She played the role of the doting wife better than she had in years. That day, she kissed me before heading out, longer than usual. Her hand lingered on my chest, like the way she had touched him at the party. Like she knew exactly what she was doing. Like she was daring me to respond. But I didn't. I stood there, statue still, until the door closed behind her. I sat in that silence for a long time, listening to the refrigerator hum, the clock tick, the faint drip of the faucet. Then I opened her laptop. She was sloppy, or maybe arrogant. Maybe she thought I'd never look twice at the world she kept tucked away in files and folders. But within 2 minutes, I was staring at a folder titled simply, Q1 Photos. I clicked it open. They weren't work photos. They were them, Laura and Chris together. Some were at the hotel she had claimed was for a conference. Poolside sh*TS. Her in a two-piece I'd never seen before. Him shirtless, arm around her waist like it was his place to be. They were smiling, happy. Others were taken inside a room. Dim lighting, hotel pillows, drinks on the nightstand, her head on his chest, both of them tangled in white sheets. And then I found *TS, chats exported as PDFs. Conversations that read like some twisted diary of a second life. Romantic declarations, inside jokes, talk of getting away together, and worst of all, plans. If it were just you and me, no baggage, imagine that. Sometimes I wish he'd just know, so I could stop hiding. I think about you when I'm with him, I know that's awful, but it's true. They weren't just having an affair. They were building something. A reality parallel to mine. One where I didn't exist except as an obstacle. I closed the laptop slowly, hands shaking. Then I got up, washed my face, and went to work. Because what else could I do? That night, she was waiting when I got home. Dressed nicely. A little makeup. A new blouse. Thought we could do pasta tonight, she said, voice light. Your favorite. I even got that wine you like from Trader Joe's. I just nodded. She cooked like nothing was wrong. Moved around the kitchen like a woman at peace, humming, dancing between burners. She even set the table with candles like we were on some date night. It was sickening. At dinner, she made conversation. Asked about my day. Told me a story about a coworker who spilled coffee on their keyboard. She even laughed. Not forced, real, open laughter. And I hated her for it. You seem happy, I said, setting down my fork. She tilted her head. Do I? I didn't respond. She smiled. I'm just trying to bring a little joy back into our routine. You've seemed so distant lately. I stared at her. The gall. You're a really good actress, I said. She blinked, taken aback. Excuse me? You heard me. James, she said slowly. What's this about? I laughed quietly. You know exactly what it's about. Her smile faltered, then, just as quickly, returned. I don't want to fight, she said. Can't we just have one good night, please? And that's when I realized she wasn't sorry. She was waiting to see if I'd do something, waiting to see if I'd blow up, pack a bag, threaten divorce. But I didn't, and that terrified her more than any argument. Because I was quiet, measured, unpredictable. She cleared the table afterward, humming again. Then she sat beside me on the couch and rested her head on my shoulder. I missed this, she whispered. I didn't move. That night, she curled up next to me in bed like everything was fine. She draped her arm across my chest like she always used to, and whispered good night with a kiss on my jaw. I stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. The next day, I started documenting everything. *TS. Photos. Timelines. I emailed copies to a private account. I wrote down dates, late nights, changed passwords, new clothes, perfume purchases. I even backed up her chat folders onto a flash drive and locked it in my car's glove box. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was preparing for freedom. Every evening, the act continued. She brought me coffee in the morning. She left sticky notes on the fridge with "I love you" in bubbly handwriting. She invited me to walk the dog with her, watch old movies, talk about reconnecting. And all the while, her phone stayed glued to her side. Face down, silent, never out of reach. I watched it all unfold like a slow-motion play. The way she smiled just a little too much. The way she exaggerated laughter. The way she overcompensated for affection. She was acting, and I hated that I knew the lines by heart. One evening, we had a fire in the backyard. She lit the candles, poured wine, and pulled out the fleece blanket we used to cuddle under during the early days. She even brought out the photo album, our wedding, our first trip to the Smokies, holidays with my parents. Do you ever think about those times? She asked, tears glistening in her eyes. I wanted to believe they were real, that maybe some part of her did feel something for me. But then I remembered the texts, the laughter, the hotel, the image of her in his arms. I do, I said, and I did, but not with fondness, with mourning, because I wasn't looking at my wife anymore. I was looking at someone who had perfected the art of pretending to be in love while loving someone else in secret. And that's the part that broke me more than the cheating, the lie of it all, the cold-blooded normalcy, the smile while stabbing, the kiss after betrayal, the soup served with a side of deception. Every night, I lay next to her, wondering if she checked his texts before falling asleep, if she replayed his laugh in her head instead of mine, if she waited for me to drift off so she could whisper his name in her dreams. Eventually, I stopped asking questions. I didn't need her answers anymore. I had the truth, and the truth was colder than anything I'd ever known. I never planned to go through her laptop again. Once was enough. Or so I thought. But that's the thing about doubt, it doesn't fade with time. It festers. It waits in the background, scratching at your brain until you can't sit still. And the longer Laura kept up the act, her rehearsed smiles, her perfect meals, her over-the-top affection, the more I needed to see what was behind it. Couldn't help it. I wasn't looking for confirmation anymore. I already had that. What I wanted was understanding. I just didn't expect to find so much. It started with something small, innocent even. She left the laptop open on the kitchen counter while she stepped outside to take a call. The screen had dimmed, but not locked. I don't even know what pulled me toward it. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe instinct, maybe something darker. I tapped the trackpad, and the screen lit up. Email. Not the work inbox she always showed me. This was personal. Gmail. The name in the corner read Laura. Writes, now. A throwaway address I'd never seen before. And the subject lines. Trip pics kiss mark. Last night. Still thinking about it. Someday love. My chest tightened. Clicked one. Photos. From the company retreat 2 months ago. The one she had almost skipped because of her workload. She told me it had been boring. Panels. Networking. The usual. But these weren't conference pictures. They were *TS of her and Chris at the pool. Her sitting on his lap, drink in hand, smiling like she was exactly where she belonged. Another of them sharing a hammock, her head tucked into his neck. They looked like a couple on vacation. Not co-workers. Not just friends. I clicked through more. There were selfies from a hotel room mirror. Laura in lingerie I'd never seen before. Him behind her, shirtless, smiling like the king of a kingdom I hadn't realized I'd lost. My hands trembled as I minimized the photos. There was a folder titled Chicago Weekend. I didn't even remember her being gone that weekend. I thought she'd stayed with her sister. Inside were videos. I didn't open them. Couldn't. Just seeing the thumbnails, her in that same lingerie, him shirtless on the bed, both laughing, holding the camera together, was enough. It made me feel like an outsider in my own life. A stranger looking in on someone else's story. But it wasn't the photos that hit me the hardest. It was the messages. Laura had saved chats between her and Chris in a folder labeled Writings. I guess she thought it would blend in with her work drafts. But there they were, transcripts. Dozens of them, exported and saved as if they were precious. As if he was precious. The first one I opened was timestamped from a few weeks ago. A night she had come home late, claimed the train had stalled. Chris, you should have stayed. Laura, I wanted to. Chris. Next time just say you're at a meeting. Or with your sister. He won't question it. Laura, he never does. I felt a sharp ache in my stomach. Another chat. Chris, you looked beautiful last night. Laura, you always say that. Chris, because it's always true. Laura. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I met you first. Chris, you did meet me first. You just didn't notice. Winking face. Laura, I notice now. I clicked through more. One after another. Pages of them. Late night check-ins. Inside jokes. Emotional confessions. Plans. So many plans. They talked about moving to Portland. Starting over. Opening a wine bar of all things. He even joked about designing a logo. She sent him mock-ups. They had a name picked out. Second story. I don't know what broke me more. That they were talking about a life together, or that she had put effort into it. She had preserved these chats like love letters. Like memories she wanted to revisit again and again. And there I was, her husband, nowhere in any of it. Not even as an obstacle. I was a footnote. A detail to manage. An inconvenience they planned around. I stood up from the table, heart racing. I couldn't breathe in that house. Every inch of it felt tainted. The curtains we picked together? She had stood in front of them while texting him. The kitchen we renovated last year? She had written love notes to another man at that counter. Our bed? God, I didn't even want to think about it. I left the laptop open and walked outside. I didn't even have shoes on. I just needed air. The evening was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. I stood at the edge of the driveway, staring into the dark, trying to remember what life felt like before any of this. When I walked back inside, Laura was in the living room, smiling at something on her phone. She looked up. "Hey babe, everything okay?" I looked at her for a long time, like I was trying to figure out who she really was beneath that smile. "Fine," I said. "Just needed air." She patted the couch next to her. "Come sit." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the laptop at her feet and yell, "Explain this." But I didn't, because I realized then, she had already told me everything I needed to know. She had documented her betrayal, curated it, saved it. That wasn't carelessness. That was sentimentality. That was pride. And no amount of her pretending, no meal she cooked or kiss she placed on my shoulder, could undo what I had seen. There was no mistake here, no lapse in judgment. This was deliberate, a decision she made again and again. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the spare room, staring at the wall until the sun came up. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, not just in bed, but smiling, happy, building something new while tearing down what we had. By morning, my decision was made. I would leave, not in a blaze of anger, not in a scene, quietly, cleanly, because if she could hide a second life from me for this long, I could hide an exit from her just as well. She taught me how. A friend sent me a video from that same party, the night it all began. In it, Laura wasn't just laughing with Chris. She was kissing him, in plain sight, bold, shameless. It wasn't a stolen moment. It was public, proud. I watched it twice, heart sinking deeper with each frame. All the lies, all the deflections. It had started long before I let myself believe it could. That video erased any doubt. She never cared if I saw. She just hoped I never looked. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I packed 2 bags, signed a lease across town, and left a note on the kitchen counter. "Don't call." That's all it said. She did try once. I let it ring. For her, the affair was an escape. For me, it was a wake-up call. I walked away not with rage, but peace. I gave her silence because it hurt more than words. And in that quiet, I finally found something she never gave me: freedom.